Alright, hey Bay Bears, it's Blake here again, and I know it's been a while since my last video, so I got a real little yogurt treat for you, a little treat, little surprise for you. We're going to be talking about Phil Schneider, underground tunnels, aliens, and a bunch of fun stuff, so let's get going with this. First off, I gotta say that I like Phil. I believe his story personally, and we're about to go into the journey. Just between me and you guys, he kind of looks like Chris Farley. I don't know. Let's go. This is Phil's wife and daughter. He talks about them a couple times during his presentations. He's worked for 17 years for the U.S. government as a geologist and structural and aerospace engineer. He's worked at various companies, including Los Alamos Laboratories. He has Pentagon level security clearances, level 3, gemstone, I believe he mentioned. It's like he co invented methods of shape charge blasting and laser rock deflagration, where the rock is basically melted when they're doing these underground tunnels. 11 out of the 17 years that he worked for the government, it was on Groom Lake, S4 and S2 complexes. He talks about 131 active underground bases, over 1,500 are worldwide. Each cost about 17 to 31 billion. They're about they have about 800 people to 10,000 people employed. It takes up 25% of the black budget. It's like 500 billion a year. They usually take around 1 or 2 years to construct them. They could do 7 miles a day, and these tunnels are huge. They were 28 feet by 28 feet. They were 2 miles down. They all had subway train cars that could go Mach 2, and it all connected all these tunnels, all these underground bases. And he worked on three of the bases, being Los Alamos being the most famous one. They're called DUMBs, deep underground military bases. Some of these locations include Colorado, where there's 4. I think most of you have heard about the underground one underneath the Denver airport. Fort Collins, Colorado Springs, which Nikola Tesla did his experiments there. Nevada, he said there's 9 pretty much under the Air Force bases, because 81% of the land is owned by the federal government. So he says there's a bunch under there, and they're all connected. There's tons of movie references for underground tunnels and bases and areas. As Above, So Below is one where they're going through caverns, and there's The Matrix has it, underground base, Zion, and there's Resident Evil where it's like the Hive, and she goes down there, and there's in Core where they have these machines that use sonic vibrational frequencies and they cut through the dirt. I imagine it's something like that. And I guess history repeats itself because there's underground tunnels in the ancient archaeology record. These are pictures of drawings of underground caverns in Turkey. I think this is a picture of the Turkey underground tunnel, 5,000 years old. And here's one of Scotland, I believe. It's around 12,000 years old. It's wild. I mean, look at the design on this. It is extraordinary. I just thought I'd throw this in there as well. It's the Kalasa Temple in India. It's a temple, carved directly out of a mountain. Amazing. I wish it was the Khaleesi Temple. But here's some more pictures. Just amazing. This thing fascinates me. Truly remarkable. All right, so the most famous story that he tells is about him working at Los Alamos in 1979 August, where there's 66 deaths. They call it the Dulce Wars or the Alien Human War. So the basic story was while he was working for the government, they wanted him to look at this area underground. Samples were coming back weird. They would send something down a probe and it would be, lost. And so they take a bunch of groups to go down there and lower him in a basket. And he sees 2 7 foot tall, large gray aliens. Said it was all black sooty and they smelled like garbage. And as soon as he saw him, he freaked out and he pulled out his PPK Walter, wearing this huge biohazard suit, and shot and killed two of them. And while he was doing that, one of them waved his hand in front of his chest, and this blue beam came out and hit Phil. He said it was like an electrical force, like a lightning bolt. So this thing hit him, and it opened him up like a fish, and he got like super burned, and there was a big hole in his chest, and his lungs, skin, toes, fingers, his bones were burned. He was in serious condition. His fingers got burned off, and a Green Beret pulled him and pushed him back in the basket, and saved his life. And the fighting kept going down. I think he said 3 people survived total, and 66 died. Two are in Canada. One can't talk, and one doesn't want to. I think I should at least talk about this a little bit. This is the picture that I mentioned in my previous video with Al Bielek. He mentions Phil in a lot of his videos. Phil approached him asking about his dad, and wanted to know more and who he was, and he had this picture, and this is the Val Valiant Thor. It's picture taken in 1943. He was like atomic bomb scientist, and Val lives for about 500 years, has 6 fingers and toes, has a large heart and large lungs, and filled with copper oxide blood like a octopus, and 1200 IQ, speaks 100 languages, doesn't shake hands. He said it was like a spacesuit. Brain capacity 300% larger. He said he was a remarkable human being. He said he got to meet him. During his presentations, Phil would usually show medals that he's found while he's been working. Yeah, he talks about Mironite. It's in every stealth aircraft. Some of the purest titanium. He's saying how they're combining elements and creating new elements with alien metals. And some wild stuff. How the periodic table used to have 105 elements. Then all of a sudden, they discovered, 40 more elements, and, it keeps going up and up. He got some metal shrapnel shadings that he had from the Roswell crash, where they had to dip it in liquid nitrogen and then hit it with a hammer, and they would break off the pieces of metal, and that was the only way they could break up the... He talks about crystal groupings and crystal systems, where they're used for making metals, and he's talking about combining metals with helium and hydrogen and making compulsion technology, and that this was basically the best technology that the aliens gave to the humans was the metals and the spaceship materials. Bill discusses a wide variety of topics here, so I'm going to just kind of rapid fire them at you. United States first learned about aliens 1909 U.S. cavalry chasing bandits into a cave, Tooth of Consequences, New Mexico, and they found ships and cave drawings of gray aliens and ships. 1954, Eisenhower, the Grenada Alien-Human Treaty, where they traded alien technology for humans and slaves and whatever they wanted, pretty much. Those are the abductions. The most specific thing I think that relates to today is he's talking about a breakaway civilization, a new world order, a alien agenda. He goes pretty deep into this. So it's basically deep state, the secret government, using up a black budget to make these underground tunnels and run eugenics experiments and pretty much doing whatever they want. He's talking about the plan. It's the military-industrial complex. It's globalism. It's New World Order. It's alien agenda. He's saying they're all a part of the same thing. A scientific, technological government, breakaway society. He talks about fake news and destroying the parasites. You can relate this to Donald Trump today and clearing the swamp. He talks about 9/11 bombing. He talks about, Oklahoma bombing, many things. Janet Reno, he doesn't like her. He talks about gun control and taking away freedom of speech and our liberties. And it's, just reflecting everything that's happening today, remarkable. He talks about the chemicals and the attack on culture and putting things into martial law and, talking about the plan, man. He knows it. He was very passionate and adamant about this when he was speaking. He really wants us to prevent this from happening and to stop this breakaway civilization. Alright, that's about it. I burned through that pretty quick. It's a lot of information, so I suggest watching his videos. I'll link them down below. But now we're going to talk about the assassination attempts on his life. He had at least 13 assassination attempts on his life, with the 14th one killing him. He was shot in the shoulder. He had threats against him and his family, cars running him off the road. He said he killed an FBI agent and tried to report it, and they said these things happened. He goes into his buddy Ron Rumble in the Star Wars project, and it kind of breaks him up. His death was labeled a suicide death, which later came out and was labeled a homicide. I'm not sure. It's probably still open. Before Phil died, he was planning a more conferences and more presentation. He was going to do a tell-all about all the information. He said he only pretty much told 10% of what he knew, and he was going to come out with all of it. The cause of death was a heart attack or heart failure. They discovered his body with a rubber catheter wrapped around his neck 3 times and tied at the back, and they thought this was suicide. His fingers weren't strong enough to pull the hose together, so there's no way he could have tied that. Phil's wife believed that they falsified the autopsy report, and they never got clear answers, and they were pretty much, slowly pulled through this long ordeal and trying to forget about it. Files in his house were gone. His safety deposit box disappeared. A photo album was gone. He had gold. It disappeared. 1/3 of his photos were missing, along with all of his medals. So someone took all his stuff. You can find pictures of his death on the internet, but I'm not going to show that to you. If you really want to see them, you can look them up, but I'm not going to post them. But that's going to do it for me. Little Bay Bear video has been completed, and young critters know more about what's going on. So enjoy it, and Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang.